Hey guys, welcome back to Calgary Barbell. I wanted to talk a little bit today about my hip pain. I know that I get a lot of questions about it. It's something that I've been dealing with since I started prepping for Worlds in Texas last year. If you go back to the very first training log that we did for that on this channel, you'll see me screaming expletive deleted and throwing my belt across the gym because my hip was causing me so much pain. Over the last year or so, it's been quite an interesting journey of trying to figure out what cues work, what makes a difference, why my hip hurts. I've had x-rays, I've had an MRI, I've had an ultrasound, all showing essentially nothing and no reason why my hip should be hurting. So I just want to share with you guys today two major things that I did that really made a difference. If any of you guys have been watching our recent training logs, my raw squat specifically, is feeling great, whereas it used to cause me a lot of pain. Whether I'm doing reps or whether I'm doing heavy singles, I feel like I finally have a bit of a grasp on it, so I wanted to share with you guys two of the major things that I've done to help make my squat feel better. The first big thing that I changed was learning to be active in my feet. So I was watching some squat footage of a particularly painful, poorly grooved, bad squat day. One of the things that I noticed was that I was collapsing from the ankles. So you'll see my tib fib or my lower leg limb collapse inward, which leads to my knees knocking in just a little bit. This can be something that can be used for people who have a problem with a lot of knee valgus or knee crash. But thinking about rooting your feet, and what I mean by rooting your feet, I know Chris Duffin just did like a 2-hour video on how your feet work, but to simplify it in terms of what's worked for me and the cues that have worked for me, I just think about squeezing my foot into my shoe like this, like it's a crab claw, and I'm just trying to pinch the ground and make sure that my arch doesn't collapse. We'll show you guys some footage of what that looks like to have the arch collapse versus the arch staying up. So that's a really big thing in terms of making sure everything up the chain is working properly in correct orientation for things not to be painful. So number one, feet. Number two, the next biggest thing that I started doing was I started being more and more concerned with how I'm bracing my trunk. I think as I came out of the hole in most of my squats, I'd go into like this flick of excessive lordosis or anterior pelvic tilt, essentially arching my back a little bit too much right as I initiate my squat out of the bottom and right as I initiate my squat at the top too, actually. And I think in large part that's contributed to why my hip hurt. One of the things that I've done, especially this training cycle, and this is the best my squats have ever felt, I've had numerous days in a row now in these last 2 weeks where I have zero pain. Zero pain. That's huge. So one of the biggest things that I've done is just thinking about clamping my ribs down on top of my abs. The way that I like to think about trunk bracing, and again, this is something that Chris Duffin's talked extensively about. I know a ton of other coaches have talked about it. I'm just gonna kind of give you my spin on it. One of the biggest things that I try to envision is that essentially my rib cage to my pelvis is like a piston in a car, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to create pressure to expand and to create more intra-abdominal pressure. So I like to think about locking my ribs down on the front, my lats down on the back, and just really keeping that core rigid. And then as I initiate the squat, not letting that open back up or go back into too much extension. I talk a lot about extension in the deadlift and in the squat, and I think that this might even be more important than that in some cases, making sure that you're bracing that trunk properly. So hopefully we've illustrated that well enough for you guys. If you guys have any further questions about that, like I said, this is the third time I've said this now. Chris Duffin has some great stuff out on both of those concepts. You know, so do a whole bunch of other coaches. But if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you like the video, like it. If this helps you, maybe give it a share and hit subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.